Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at some of the more common species of crab you can find in the intertidal zone. We're going to start with the smallest guys and the shore crabs and the hermit crabs and move up in size to the rock crab and the spider crabs. Crabs belong to the phylum Arthropoda. They're related to things like shrimp, lobster, and krill. And we have about 35 different species in our BC waters. We're going to touch base on about just 4 of them that commonly are found throughout the intertidal zone here. All right, well, we've got the tide starting to move in, and it's actually a good time to start looking for some of these crabs. So we're going to start, like I said, with some of the smallest guys. You may remember from a couple episodes ago, some of the shore crabs, they like to live underneath some of the rocks in here. Now, we don't want to be going and moving out a whole bunch of rocks, but with the tide starting to come in, we can actually find a few just underneath the waves, and I'm going to see if I can coax one onto my hand. So let's go see if we can give that a go. Okay, I got you. All right. Oh yeah, you are pinching me. Yeah, he's got me a little bit. He's trying. That feels kind of funny. Forgot about that. So it's not the most comfortable feeling in the world. So I don't advise doing this if you're not trained properly. But so as you can see with crabs, one of the main things is we've got 4 sets of legs here. And this guy is kind of curling up. It's a bit of a defense mechanism right now. But you can kind of see, maybe this side's a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sets of legs. And with it being an arthropod, your last set is right here. The chile, or what they called, or the pincers. And they're modified. Now, shore crabs don't have the strongest grip. They're a little too small to actually really do any damage. But again, as you might be able to see, he is trying to kind of grip my finger there because he's not too happy about being in the hand. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to transpose him here. Kind of pin him down. Now, the other thing is, these shore crabs are nice and flat. You can see there's not much gap between my finger and my hand, the palm of my hand. They're flat so that they can actually fit underneath the rocks in the intertidal zone. It's how they hide from their predators, mainly seabirds, sea otters, the occasional dog. So it's their body shape is what allows them to hide. If we flip this guy over here, okay, onto his back. I'm gonna keep his legs splayed a bit. You can see the tail. That little spade piece in there, that's actually his tail, or the thorax of the crabs. And that tail right there is in a triangle space or a piece. This tail and this particular guy here is in a triangle size, and so that means that this little guy is actually a male. The females have a spade-shaped tail, and that's so that they can hold their eggs during mating season. Shore crabs' diet consists mainly of algae and the little plant life that sort of lives in beaches such as this. They spend a lot of time underneath the rocks and everything too, so if there's any larvae, like bivalve larvae or barnacle larvae, they'll get at that kind of stuff too. So I'm gonna let this guy go back though, because he's not overly thrilled with me. Thank you very much for your cooperation. I'm putting you right back where you were. There you go. You see that? All right, so we've managed to find a little hermit crab, the next species on our list here. Now, hermit crabs are actually a little different from true crab in the fact that they don't actually make their own shell. They have to rely on finding another shell, typically a snail shell. So in this case, I believe this shell comes from, I think, a periwinkle snail. Don't quote me on that because I'm not actually 100% sure. But as you can see, I've kind of got him just in my hand here. We're just above the water line, and he's kind of searching back out for that water that I've got held back here. Now, one of the other things that differentiates hermit crabs from true crabs is the body shape itself. While true crabs have got a proper full-on shell and chitin to build up that shell, hermit crabs have actually a rather soft body. The only really hard parts are where the head is, Oh, sorry, little guy. You just fell back in. And where the pincers are. Another really cool little thing about hermit crabs is that when they outgrow their shell, of course, they have to look for a newer, larger shell. And so what they'll do is they'll actually kind of get together with it, with a bunch of other hermit crabs. And once the largest crab has found a shell, they form up a queue. And each crab in succession will inherit the shell that the bigger crab had just vacated. Like true crabs though, hermit crabs are also scavengers. So they're gonna be eating any type of plant matter, animal matter that they can come across or that falls down into their little area that they've decided to take up residence. There we go. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna put this guy back again, right where I found him. There we go. Alright, now for the next couple of crabs, the rock crab and the spider crab. Now for the next two species, we had to go under the waves just a little bit further, meaning that I would be very invasive if I was going to handle them. So I've left them alone, and we've just used the cameras to showcase them. Now first up, we've got our little kelp crab. This is a relative of the spider crabs. What differentiates them from other species of crab is they have a smaller body, as you can see here, but they have longer legs, much longer legs, and longer pincer arms. Now the disadvantage to these pincer arms, being as long as they are, is their grip strength isn't nearly as strong. This is in part due to the fact that kelp crabs are actually herbivores for the most part. In the winter time, they will switch over and they'll eat things like mussels and barnacles. That's simply because there's just a little less kelp around. But during the summer months, which is a majority of the time, especially along the west coast, they're able to feed on a lot of red and brown algae. And finally, we've come to our last species, the red rock crab. Now, these guys are your typical looking crab. They've got the nice oval shell, as well as some big, strong, developed pincers. These guys are some of the bigger crabs that you're going to find in our intertidal zone. And they're very similar to the Dungeness crab. The difference being the Dungeness crabs typically live a little further offshore. Now the last difference between something like, say, our rock crab here and our shore crabs is that the rock crabs are finally big enough, growing up to 5 inches, that they can actually be considered a predator to some animals. Mostly small fish and other little mollusks and whatnot that live throughout the intertidal zone. Join us next week when we'll take a look at some of the different species of mollusks that live in the intertidal zone.